Hi, my name is Lawrence. I just want to give a quick introduction to what I'll be discussing in this video. You'll learn that the commandments are all Elohim's wisdom, and I will read them in the Hebrew language. That the commandments are perfect, and they provide freedom and give rest, and are worthy of our admiration and respect. And they are also the requirements to gain the right back into the garden paradise. Because remember, we were expelled due to breaking the commandments. And before reading and hearing them, let's consider what is unique about the commandments. Observe firstly that these words were presented personally to his people and by Jehovah through Moshe. And secondly, they were spoken and heard audibly by the people. And of course, thirdly, they were engraved by the finger of Elohim himself. So just imagine, it would be wise of man to give consideration to the commandments when they have come personally from the Creator. Also, you'll learn that the end was foretold from the beginning. All prophesies. You'll learn also that we were created in the image of Elohim. So why the image of the beast? And I'll tell you what that really means. And this great war of ignorance between the serpent and mankind. And it's always been about transgressing of the commandments, and that is the reason the serpent gets to rule over mankind. And also learn that the kingdoms of the beast are really the serpent's kingdoms and their connection with the watchers. And this is spoken about in Enoch. And finally, I want to talk to you about the Great Awakening. This was foretold, and it's really about the wise and the foolish. And we'll look, and this is really in the book of Daniel and also in the book of Revelations. And you'll really discover that Daniel is a similitude of us. I'll talk about that. I just also want to explain, in John chapter 6, verse 63, it talks about the Ruach. It says, the Ruach gives life, the flesh counts for nothing. The words I have spoken to you, they are full of the Ruach and life. Now just think about it. The Ruach really is described as breath, as air, but it's really the spirit which is invisible. And just as you breathe air into your body to live, but you can't see that air you breathe, but yet it is necessary for life to be sustained. And it is everywhere, the air. And this is the idea of the spirit. The spirit is invisible, but it is this spirit that gives life. Because remember, the invisible world existed before the physical world. And it is this spiritual world that has manifested the physical world. So that's why the spirit is so powerful, and it is this aspect that we should keep in mind when we think about the Creator and think about His words, because His words are full of the Spirit and their life, because He created this world through His word, and His word is what He speaks, what He commands comes into existence. That's how powerful it is. So understand that these words are full of life, and this is what we're talking about here. The whole Torah, the whole law, is all spirit. Let's consider where the term, the Ten Commandments, actually comes from, and it really comes from into the English from the Latin, which is decim, which means 10, and mandati, which is mandate or commandment. And this is where the words come down, the Ten Commandments. But actually it comes from the Hebrew in Exodus chapter 34 verse 28. And we read, it says, Vayiktov el haluot et divrei habarit asheret hadavarim. And it basically says, and he inscribed, or he wrote upon the luach, the tablets, in the presence of the Aleph and the Tav, and Yeshua is the Word. So this is the Word, and Yeshua is the Word, and the Word is Spirit. And it says the words of Bari is covenant. So this covenant is based on these words that were spoken, and there were 10 of them. So Asheret, Hedabarim. These are the 10 statements or the 10 commandments. So this is where it really comes from. Now, I'd also like to point out that the Torah was given on Shavuot, and it was received on Mount Sinai in Arabia, Jabal Awaz, and it was given. They were given to Moshe on the top of the mountain, and it was after the Passover, and they were told to observe these commandments, and they were taken out of the house of slavery. So these commandments were given to set the Israelites free from slavery, but give them mandates and ways that they should observe in order to live. But there's so much more to these commandments than we can even possibly imagine. Now, also, we see that there were two tablets of the Testament given. The first set were actually broken because Moshe discovered that the Israelites had gone back into was starting to. They actually broke them because they had committed idolatry, essentially, and it's quite prophetic, really, when we consider that it was through idolatry that the Israelites fell away and they broke the first covenant. So symbolically, it represented the breaking of the first covenant, because the Creator knew all things in advance. So Moses was given a new set of the tablets, and this new set of tablets symbolized that there would be a new covenant. Because we see really that the Israelites were very rebellious, and they did not keep his ways, and they did not learn his wisdom while he was testing them in the wilderness. Now, like I said, the Shavuot was the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, and we can see that the new covenant was founded on better promises, and the laws would be written within the hearts and the minds of the people. And the reason being is because Yeshua is the fulfillment of the new covenant, because Yeshua is the one who brought the new covenant and the promises of the new covenant. And we're talking about the receiving of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of Wisdom, and this was given on the same day, actually, that the 10 Commandments were given in ancient times. So we see a due fulfillment of this also, because the works of the Most High are always in twos, if you observe that. So this was the giving of the Torah, but then the laws or the commandments were written, because remember that they are always spirit. The word is spirit, and that's why the Ruach HaKodesh was given as a deposit of the things to come, the eternal life. And you'll observe carefully that it is the keeping of the commandments that were the basis or the requirement to enter into the promised land. And we see that the Israelites never truly entered the promised land because of disobedience, and they did not trust in the Creator. But you see, there's going to be another Exodus where we will enter into the promised land, and the requirement for that is we have to keep his Torah, his commandments. Before we read the commandments, let's first consider that his Torah, his ways, are all based on wisdom. And the first step of being accepted by him is to fear his majesty and respect him as the creator and the giver of all life. Now let's read the words of wisdom. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 9. Ecclesiastes comes from the word kohelet, and it means teacher, and wisdom is our teacher. It says that the thing that has been, it is what will be again, and that which has been done is that which will be done again, and there is nothing new under the sun. You see, the Creator does everything for his wisdom, in order that we would learn his ways and accept him as the supreme creator of all life and the king over all. Now we consider the first Exodus, when Jehovah rescued the Israelites from bondage and he gave them his Torah. He tried them in the wilderness for 40 years before they would enter the promised land. He did this to see if he could teach them his ways and see would they accept and keep his laws. Now, they never really entered the day of rest that was promised to them due to disobedience, and they did not trust in the Most High. And we see similarly there is another exodus that is going to happen in our day. And this time from the power of Egypt and Babylon. Because you see, Egypt was the first kingdom that arose upon the earth after the flood. And it came through the lineage of Ham. And more on that in a moment. We'll see that some very interesting observations when we consider the line of Ham. Now, we see also that through this lineage, the beast system would come upon the earth, and this is exactly what we see. And this beast system stems right back into the Garden of Eden, and the beast here is the serpent, Satan. And I'll discuss more on that in a moment. Now, those who have put their trust in him and turned back to his Torah, this time will enter the promised land, the eternal kingdom, and the true day of rest. You see, the Creator has written the end from the beginning. You see, we are to be tested, and that's what it speaks about in the book of Revelation. And we see that we are to be tested, and we are to go into the wilderness, just like our brethren, to learn the real knowledge, just like they did in the Exodus. They were tried and tested. Why? To teach him his wisdom and see if they would keep his laws and observe his ordinances. Now, this is the knowledge of the Most High, which is his wisdom. Now let's read these words. It said, Vayidbar Elohim et kol edabarim haele lamor samak Anoki Yehovah Eloheka asher hosetika me'aretz Misraim mebet abadim. And spoke Elohim in the presence of the Aleph and the Tav, and this is Yeshua, wisdom, all these words saying, Samak, I am Yehovah Eloheka, your Elohim, Asher, who, Osetika, and this word, it comes from Yasa, means to come out, to be brought out of, and we're talking about from the land of Misraim. Now, Misraim is one of the sons of Ham, and through his lineage, and this is the first kingdom, Egypt, the powerful kingdom that arose upon the earth. And we're told from the house of bondage or slavery, and this word here comes from about what it means to work or to serve, and this is exactly what was happening. They were serving the sons of Ham in Egypt, and they were enslaved by them. Now, well, it's quite remarkable if you consider the book of Jasher. It fills in the gaps when Joseph was in Egypt, and it describes the event leading on and up to the enslavement of the Israelites. What you should observe is that the people became enslaved as a result of lies and deceptions by the sons of Ham. This is important to understand. They were enslaved not because of they were forced into camps or by guns or weapons. No, they were enslaved in their minds by lies and deceptions. Now, we also see that the children of Levi knew that the Egyptians had spoken all these words in deceit to the Israelites. And this is a very important observation here, because you see in Revelations chapter 1 verse 6, you see we are meant to be a kingdom and priests to serve Elohim. And you see, by serving Elohim, he gives us great knowledge and understanding. And we are not deceived by the guile or the deception of the serpent. And this is exactly what was going on here. They were not serving the Most High. They were serving the Egyptians. And through this act, they were enslaved and deceived. Now, the Exodus account really embeds a powerful message for us today. This is a prophetic picture of whatever has been, will be again. See, man has rejected the commandment of the Most High and has hearkened to the serpent, and as a result has become deceived and enslaved and given over to death. Before we discuss this illustration, I'll quote Proverbs 25 verse 2 again. It said, "It is the glory of Elohim to conceal things, but the glory of kings is to search out matters." You see, the Creator has appointed people to rule upon the earth, and he has chosen specific people in his word. And we see that Yeshua has being given the throne of David, and Yeshua is Elohim's wisdom. Now, understanding that he is the creator who reveals mysteries and secrets unto his servants. Now, kings were meant to rule with righteous judgment upon the earth, and they should have wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And they should uphold the creator's laws. Now, like I mentioned previously, this really goes back to the Garden of Eden and the serpent. Mankind was warned not to listen and hearken unto the serpent. And you see, it is through this great war of ignorance humanity was deceived. But the Creator had already foreseen his creation, and he already foresaw what would become of it. And with great care and consideration, he had to save that which was lost. Now, it is through his magnificent wisdom and his knowledge and understanding, he's already determined the end from the beginning. Now, Adam and Eve was appointed unto spiritual death and their descendants. Their nature was changed, and the spirit of life, which is wisdom, was removed from them. So the knowledge and understanding was removed from mankind. Okay? Now they were cast out of the garden into the wilderness, which is this world. Now this is also part of Elohim's wisdom. You see, mankind is in a constant state of perpetual blindness and enslaved by the power of the serpent. The serpent gets to rule over the people due to their ignorance, and he has implanted false knowledge within their minds. And it is through this knowledge the world has become corrupted and defiled. This has been the great war of ignorance. And in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, it says, Elohim of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers, so they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Messiah, which is Yeshua, who is the image of Elohim. See, we are created in the image of Elohim. And we are created to rule over the creation because he had given us great knowledge and understanding. He had given us counsel, the ability to comprehend and reason. And it is all paramount that we uphold and keep his decrees and his wisdom and honor his commandments. Now, the Creator said he was going to put enmity between the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. And this really means opposition and hostility. And we can see this in a moment. Now, I also want to say this is also, if we think about it, from the very beginning, this continuation of this story concludes in the book of Revelation. You see, the Creator has foretold everything, and it's really quite amazing. And it concludes with the story of the woman and the dragon. And the dragon really is the serpent in the garden. Now, this child who will rule is Yeshua, who will rule over the nations, because Yeshua is the King of Kings. Now, I want to talk about in Enoch. You see, in Enoch we're told that before the flood, the watchers descended upon the earth in the days of Jared, or Yared. These are, and Yared means to fall, and these are the fallen angels, and their leader was Azazel. Now, when you understand that Azazel is Satan, the son of perdition, and there's a prophecy in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3, it says, do not let anyone deceive you, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed. Now, he's called the man of lawlessness. And this is what Yeshua meant when he said, it is written, you are Elohim, but you will die like men. And this is discussed in John chapter 10 and in Psalms 82. And it's talking about these angels, these fallen angels. But it says that, it says, you are written Elohim, but you will die like men. And that's essentially what has happened. They have transgressed and become like men upon the earth. And that's what that is speaking about. Now, Satan gets to rule in the heart of man. And understanding that is very important, which is why Judas betrayed Yeshua. We see that Satan entered into his mind in Luke verse 22, verse 3. And this is really his temple, because the temple is where the Spirit is, and the Spirit really is the real world. This physical manifestation of reality is the wilderness that the Creator has cast man into, but there is another world that is hidden from mankind, and this is the spiritual world, and it's magnificent. Now, understanding that they are spirit and can take on different forms is key to understanding how they can control mankind. We understand that it was Azazel and his angels who followed him that taught all unrighteousness and revealed the secret things of heaven. Through this knowledge, the mind of man became defiled and corrupted, and his thoughts were only evil all the time. And this word evil in Hebrew means foolish, without understanding. Now this is symbolized as the serpent in the garden. Now a serpent is really a metaphor for a sneaky and crafty creature. That is the meaning of this connotation. Now we're also told in Enoch chapter 16 verse 2 concerning the watchers. He said, "You who had been aforetime in heaven, say to them, you have been in heaven, but all the mysteries had not yet been revealed to you. And you knew worthless ones, and these in the hardness of your hearts you have made known to the women. And through these mysteries, women and men work much evil on earth. Say to them, therefore, you have no peace." Now, the Creator is quite amazing, you see, because this is from the book of Enoch. And the book of Enoch starts off with, see, the Lord is coming with 10,000 of his holy ones to execute judgment. Now, this is the second coming of Yeshua with his angels to execute judgment upon the earth. So, even in the Enoch, so much prophecy and so much history, so much of the future is already being foretold. And this is the case here, and this is the story directly relating to Adam and Eve in the garden. And it is symbolized as Adam and Eve because Adam means humankind. And we see it is these angels who taught the mysteries to woman, because we're told that Eve was the one deceived. So the woman was the one deceived by the serpent. And through this knowledge, women and men work much evil on the earth. Now, what's also quite worthy of mentioning is that they knew worthless ones, right? These mysteries. So the Creator, in his infinite wisdom, knew what would happen beforehand. And this is all about basically keeping the commandments, trusting in the Most High, and not breaking his commandments. And everyone has been tested. Now, also it talks about in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 20, it says, "Turn away from godless chatter and the opposing ideas of what is falsely called knowledge." And this is the same thing. This knowledge that has been imparted to mankind, these are worthless ones, right? Worthless knowledge that mankind has been given. And this is the knowledge in the world, because there are two kinds of wisdom. There's the wisdom the Greeks call Sophia, and there's the wisdom of Elohim. Now, Elohim's wisdom has been hidden, but destined for our glory. Now, that's what's quite amazing here. Now, think carefully in your minds for all those who are awakened about the knowledge you have grown up with, how false it is, and all those lies and deceptions that we have been fed. Well, this is the meaning of eating from the tree of knowledge between good and evil. And this tree symbolizes the serpent in the garden. Now, about the seed of the serpent and the woman, we learn that these spirits, assuming many different forms, took the form of man and defiled themselves with the women, the daughters of Adam, and had their own offspring. They even appeared as the husband of the wives in order to steal the wives from their husbands, who they liked. Now, this was a forbidden union, and by transgressing against the Creator's commandments had serious consequences and implications for this world. So that's why, depending on where you are in Elohim's kingdom and what responsibility you have given, there is there's different requirements and laws and things that are very serious. So by breaking or transgressing a commandment, it can have some serious consequence. And that's what we're seeing here. Take, for example, their offspring, who were the giants upon the earth. They were known as the mighty men of renown. They built massive cities and fortresses all around the world for themselves. They were feared by man due to their strength and power. They not only consumed all the acquisitions of men, but turned against men and beasts and devoured flesh and defiled themselves with one another. This is why the Creator made righteous judgment upon them and commanded that they should be wiped and blotted out from the earth. See, it's the Creator that has wiped out their memory or their memorial from the earth. Now, the Creator said He was going to reveal those things that were hidden and reveal those things before judgment. And that's what He's doing. Now, also, the Creator did this by His wisdom and discretion. And we cannot even begin to comprehend how complicated of a matter to judge and to resolve. This is why His wisdom has been hidden, and why the angels long into these matters also. Now, the angels have got much higher intelligence, much greater capability than man, and even they long into these matters. And we see that His foreknowledge and the mystery of Elohim was to be revealed in the end. There is a reason why the Creator commanded for them to be eradicated. For wisdom teaches us that for whatever a man sins by the same he is punished. The Creator judged them perfectly. He magnified His mercy, and in wisdom, in the Psalm of Wisdom, or the Wisdom of Solomon, in chapter 12, we read, it said, "By executing thy judgments upon them little by little, He gave them time and place of repentance, but not being ignorant that they were a naughty generation, and that their malice was bred in them, and that their cogitation would never be changed." That means their ability, their mind could not be changed. But He was mindful of that. But He still gave them time and place for repentance, but they did not repent. Now we learn also that these spirits of these giants, when they died, they became known as evil spirits upon the earth, because you see, they were from the watchers whose fathers were eternal, which is why these spirits can live through generation to generation. This is why they can execute plans that are 100 years old in advance, and why they devise plans unthinkable to humans. In Enoch also we are told that these spirits of these giants afflict, they oppress, they destroy, they attack, they do battle, and work destruction upon the earth and cause trouble. And we're told to take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. Also that these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them. This is why there is so much conflict and oppression here. And this is what it means in the word when it says that they sacrifice to demons, which are not Elohim, which had recently arrived. So these spirits of these giants that were upon the earth, they still exist, and they're around today. And in Deuteronomy, it talks about this in chapter 32, verse 70, and it's also witnessed in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 20. Now also these spirits are known as demons, and are under the dominion of Satan. And it is through these spirits they are involved with leading mankind astray through lies and deceptions, idolatry, and sacrifices. And this is what Yeshua, when He was here, He came to set the captives free. And we are in bondage, the world, to these powers of these spirits, these forces that pretty much rule the earth. Now, we'll talk more about that a bit later. Understanding why the Creator brought about the flood in the days of Noah. It has all to do with the corruption of humanity, the mind. You see, we were created in the image of Elohim. You see, He breathed the Ruach Kaim, which is the spirit of life. This is His kingdom, His mind that He has given to man to have reason, to have knowledge, and to have understanding. But we see that what happened in those days is that the mindset of man had become very corrupted, and everything had become corrupted upon the earth. Now the Creator is quite amazing in his wisdom, and it really goes back to the Garden of Eden and to do with the serpent, and it's to do with the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And the Creator said that he was going to put enmity between these two, and we'll see this in a moment. But also the Creator cursed the earth, and he cursed the serpent, and the serpent was cursed above all the animals on the earth. And this is the beginning of the beast system, because a beast is an animal that is without reason and understanding. And this is exactly what happened. Now, after the flood, we have the table of nations, and we'll observe something in a moment. We have the seed of Ham, the seed of Shem, and Japheth. And these are the three sons of Noah. And we see that the table of nations come through these three lineages. And Shem, of course, we know is the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. But also the Messiah comes through this lineage also. Now, I want to talk about the curse. We know that the serpent was cursed above all the animals, and he was given the mind of a beast, an animal, without reason. And we see a very similar thing occurred here between Noah and Ham. And what you see, Ham exposed, something happened between Ham and Noah, where Noah cursed Ham and his seed, well, Canaan. And it's very interesting here. But also we observe something in this lineage of Ham. We see that these two empires, which is Mizraim, which is Egypt, and Cush, which is the lineage of Babylon. So these two kingdoms here, Egypt and Babylon, have a very significant role in Elohim's plan. And we'll see in a moment where this power of Egypt comes into effect. But also I want to mention about this curse, right? He said that Ham and his descendants will be servants. A servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. So, in other words, Shem would rule over Ham. But we see that's not the case here. We see that Egypt enslaved Shem and Japheth. That's a very interesting observation. Now also through this lineage here, we see that the beast systems would come upon the earth. And of course we're talking about Babylon, Medo and Persia, we're talking about Greece, and of course the Roman Empire. And they all come through this lineage. And why are they called beast systems? Well, it's very it's obvious if you think about it. A beast, and it goes right back to the garden, because they are the kingdoms of Satan. See, Satan is the beast, but also he is the one who is behind these powers. Now we also see that the Elohim and the giants were in this lineage also, and we can see there is so much conflict between these two groups. And the Creator has actually ordered the eradication of many of these kingdoms here. Many of these groups were completely eradicated. Why? Because they were the seed of the serpent. They represent the seed of the serpent. Whether you take this figuratively or literally, the power of these kingdoms are from the beast, who is really the serpent. And this is what the analogy or the symbolism here in the beast, and the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, the head of gold, the chest of silver, and you have the thigh of bronze, and the legs of iron and clay, and the feet. Because it talks about the gradient, because obviously gold is of more value than silver, silver is of more value than bronze, and bronze is of more value than iron and clay. So we see there's a degradation. These kingdoms are becoming defiled and corrupted. And what's quite interesting, this fourth kingdom is represented by these two legs of iron and clay, because iron and clay is a divided kingdom. And what you should notice it also is that Rome introduced the first form of government, the Senate, which is basically the model of all governments ever since. So it is really a divided kingdom. And this is what Yeshua said to Satan. He said, a kingdom that is divided will fall. And that's quite amazing when you think about that. So keep in mind that the Creator already foretold this in advance, and He has hidden this in His wisdom, which is really quite amazing. Now ask yourself today, and I want to talk a little bit about this power of Egypt. And we look at the world today, and we see that we have Egypt and we have Babylon. And we see that the conclusion of this matter is that Babylon is destroyed. And we're told to come out of Babylon. You see, because the power of the serpent and has been there all along. And it has been ruling the world ever since. And it has enslaved the children. And this is what the commandments are all about, is that if we keep the commandments of the Most High, then we are taken out of this power structure here and brought into the Creator's kingdom. But we see that through this there was a lot of disobedience among the children of Elohim, and they actually didn't keep His commandments, and instead they were enslaved by these by these beast kingdoms, which are really the kingdoms of Satan. Now, if we look down here, we have this incredible structure when you think about it, and whether you take this literally or figuratively, it is symbolic, and it really represents the structure that the world is controlled in. And we obviously have the population workers down here, which is the slaves, and whether people like it or not, they are actually slaves. And we see how the world population is controlled, and it's really through these areas here. We have religion, we have the governments, the intelligence community. So this structure here really is the control of the world population. And then of course we have resource control here, which is the corporations themselves. They have all the control of the resources of the world. And of course you have the world financial control, which is these central banks, your tax revenues and your interest revenues. And then of course you have your think tanks up here. And they're basically your Bilderberg groups, your Club of Rome, of course your Council on Foreign Relations. And these guys up here really get to decide how everything else works down here. And it's really quite amazing, this structure. And then above you have the Committee of 300, you have the Crown Council of 13, and you have the world monarchs. Now, we're told in the Word that it is the kings, the monarchs who run the world. And these monarchs have been given the power to rule by the serpent. And this is the symbol at the top of the apex of the pyramid. And it's this same symbol over here we see on the back of a US dollar bill. We have the Eye of Providence, or the Eye of Horus, and it is really the symbol of the Watchers, or the Elohim, because this is how they get to rule. They get to rule in secrecy. Now, it doesn't mention here secret societies, but really that's where all the power is, through secrecy. And also we have a look here at the World Health Organization. What do we see here? Well, we see the staff, which is the same staff that Moses had to rule. And we see that the serpent is intertwined around the staff, means that he is the ruler. And we have the world in the background, because really the serpent is the ruler of this kingdom. What you should also observe here is the symbolism. Now, symbolism is a way of conveying much knowledge and understanding, and a mystery, of course. And we see this throughout the Word, the Torah, is much symbolism, such as the beasts, kingdoms, the statue of gold. You see, the Creator has hidden His wisdom in His Word, and it's for us to discover this, so to understand the deeper mysteries that are going on here. Now, if we go back into Egypt and just look at exactly what was actually taking place and why the commandments were given, because it's important to understand the reason for the commandments. Now, we see that the Elohim, or they were called the Watchers, when they descended upon the earth, well, what did they do? Well, they taught heavenly things, and they had knowledge of the heavens. So consider the pyramids, for example, and their connection with the stars. Just one example. And we see that the much symbolism in Egypt, because this symbolism is their language, and it is much beyond our comprehension, the level of knowledge that is actually being conveyed here. So that is quite important as well. And what else do we see about Egypt? Well, Egypt and Babylon. Well, we see that they were renowned for idols, for magic and divination. Where did this knowledge come from? Well, it really came from the Watchers, but also we see that the giants, the spirits that proceeded from the giants, they were heavily involved in idolatry. So it's quite remarkable when you actually observe these things that are already being foretold, and how amazing and profound His wisdom is. Now that we have a better understanding, let's read Mitzvah, commandment number 1. We read, Lo yeh leka Elohim akarim al paneah. Basically, this word is not. To take to you, and we got Elohim. And this word here, akarim, means another, or it actually also means or to remain behind or tarry. And we have the word paneah, which really means faces, but also it means to turn. So in other words, you shall not turn to other Elohim and serve them, basically, is what it's really referring to here. Now, I want to talk a little bit about my when I had my spiritual awakening over 20 years ago. One thing I asked the Creator to show me was, how does Satan run this world? You see, I understood from reading Matthew chapter 4 that all the kingdoms of the earth had been given to Satan, and he is in control of them. And I've shown you also from the previous illustration from the days of Noah, how Satan has been running the kingdoms. So it is very clear. Now, what he showed to me was quite remarkable. He revealed to me that it is through secret societies, and that's what the symbolism is all about, these secret symbols, because this is their language, but this is their control way of actually how they control mankind, and it has to be through secrecy. And what is quite interesting also is, if you look at the similitude of the life of Yeshua and how it parallels our lives. You see, in Matthew it talks about Yeshua was taken into the wilderness. Now the wilderness is the area where Azazel was also, and it really symbolizes a place that is wild and uncultivated, a land that is difficult for humans to inhabit. So basically, in other words, you have to put your trust in the Creator. So you either trust the Creator, or you fall under the control and the dominion of Satan. And this is really what is spoken about. And it's always been about transgressing of the commandments. And this is exactly what occurred in the garden. And it is to do with Adam and hearkening onto the serpent, because you see, the serpent deceived Adam from the beginning, and Eve. And through that deception, they lost the kingdom. And this same practice was going on, and we can see this in the life of Yeshua, where he was tested by Satan in the wilderness. And he tried in many ways to see if he would transgress the commandments, such as, if you are the son of Elohim, tell these stones to become bread. And then also he led him up unto a high mountain, symbolizing the kingdoms and dominions. And he said, if you will bow down and serve me. And what do we see after the Exodus? We see that the Israelites were enslaved because they bowed down to other Elohim. And this is what is being spoken about. Of course, Yeshua says to worship and serve Jehovah Elohim, and serve him only. And this is really what this commandment is, and it's no different to today. We see that the kingdom of the beast and the two legs of iron and clay, a divided kingdom, and these kingdoms of government that has been set up are actually the same head controlling them, which is the head of the beast, which is the serpent. So he has been controlling mankind from the days of the beginning, and we can see that is quite evident. Now, we're also told in Matthew 6:24, it says, it said, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. So we cannot serve Elohim, and he uses the word mammon because, you see, money is the control of how the serpent does control mankind. He enslaves them through money. And of course, the serpent is the one who created all these systems in the first place. Commandment number 2. Lo ta'aseh laka basel v'kol temuna aser basamayim mima'al v'aser ba'aretz mitahet v'aser v'mayim mitahet la'aretz lo tishtaheva lehem v'lo tahabedim ki enoki Yehovah Eloheka El Kana Poked Avon Avot El Banim El Solesim Ve'el Rivaim Lesonea Ve'ose Hesed La'alapim Lehohave U Lesormere Mitzvote Samak. And basically what it's talking about, he says, you shall not make to yourself an image or anything that of the likeness which is in the heavens above. So this idea here, Pesel, this image can mean a shape or an idol. And Tamuna is a likeness or a form, and it can mean kind or species. And we're talking about in the heavens. And this word here, mimal, comes from ma'al, and it means to ascend or to go upwards or to climb. Also, that is in the earth beneath or underneath the earth, or that is in the waters underneath the earth. So there's very specific domains it's speaking about in the heavens above, in the earth beneath, and in the waters beneath the earth. So you think about these specific domains today, top secrecy around what is actually in those underground bases, because there's a lot of speculation about what is actually down there, but we see that is one of the domains that is being discussed. Also, when you if you look and study the UFO phenomenon, you see that it is to do with the heavens, but it's also to do with underneath the ocean. There's a lot of activity in the ocean, so it's talking about specific these specific areas. And of course, the Israelites have not been up into the heavens. This group of people at the time is obviously speaking to a specific group of people, and this is to do with the activities of the watchers, because what it's talking about, if it says lo tishtaheva lehem, so basically it's talking about not to bow down to them, and velo tahabedem ki, or to serve them. And that's basically what was happening if you look in Egypt, that the Israelites were serving other Elohim. So this is basically what it's talking about up here. And it says, I am Yehovah, your Elohim. I'm a God, right? So Yehovah is the creator of the Elohim. So he's above the Elohim. And he's talking about he is a jealous Elohim, because he is visiting, or he's appointing, visiting the iniquities of the fathers onto the Banim, the sons, and onto Solesim, the third and fourth. So this is thousands. So this is generations. So 1,000 period of time. So he's basically visiting. He's committing. He's basically carrying out the what he said he would do. And also we see here those are fourth generations. And what I was going to show as well, it says Lesonea is those who hate me. So those generations of those people hated. They didn't respect or care for the Creator. So, but we see here, Ve'ose Hesed, but making mercy, Lalapim, to 1,000 of Leohave, those who love, and who Lesomere Misvote. So those who basically love, and this word Shamar means to guard and to keep his commandments. So you see, he shows mercy for those who respect and keep his commandments. Now, taking this whole commandment into context, we see that these commandments is to do with the activities of the watchers. We see they broke this commandment because they thought the secret things of the heavens. We are told that the watchers are imprisoned upon the earth and bound. They cannot ascend into the heavens. They are limited. Now there is a sentence that has gone forth for a duration of 70 generations that they will be bound within the valleys of the earth. This is why there is a time limit allowed for the transgressions to be complete. Now also, if you look in antediluvian times, they were making images of heavenly things. The evidence is in the earth and within the mythology itself. Also, we see that the watchers thought their children, the giants, the mighty men, the secret things, and this knowledge was with the spirits that proceeded out of the giants, which is where we get the origin of the evil spirits and demons. It should also be noted that idolatry has its roots and origins from these spirits, which has really resulted in the corruption of humanity. So now, taking this commandment, we can see that the Creator sent a decree to the watchers that they would see the destruction of their children. And this is why we see the punishment of the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generations. You see, they had a life expectancy of up to 500 years, and we see that they were in the earth before the flood and after the flood. So that's why there was enmity between him and her seed, because they have been always at conflict against one another. And that's what the Creator has said, that he gave them time and place to repent, but they did not. And I can only assume this must have been a very difficult decision to make, but we can see why the Creator foretold this. You see, they were committing crimes against man, animals, fish, and birds. They were drinking blood and carrying out much lawlessness. So we see that this is the reason why we are commanded to observe and to keep the commandments, because there is serious repercussions for not keeping them. Mitzvah number 3. Lo tishsa et Shem Yehovah Eloheka lasav, ki lo yanake Yehovah et asher yisa et Shemo lasav. And this is a very stark warning, and it's a warning about misusing the name of the Creator. And there's a commandment around it because the name is of great reverence and it is to be respected. And basically what it's saying is you should not lift or carry the name of the Creator, your Elohim, and to use it in an empty way, or in vanity, or in a falsehood, or in a worthless manner. You should. We are commanded to proclaim the knowledge of the Mighty One through knowledge and understanding. So we're meant to know the Mighty One, but we're pointing this out because many people misuse His name and they don't have reverence and respect for it. So This is what this commandment is speaking regarding. And I want to show you, we see that we have Lasav, and Lasav is mentioned twice in this, and we also have Et and Et, which is the Aleph and the Tav. Yeshua says that I am the Aleph and the Tav, which is the Torah, and the Torah is the word, the light which became flesh and tabernacle amongst us. So we have a testimony here, I believe, about the name, and the name is also mentioned twice here. So let's keep this in mind. This is one of the commandments we're commanded to observe and to keep. But to keep a commandment, we need to first understand what it means to break or to misuse the name. Now, let me show you in a minute. It's got this pay at the end of the commandment. I want to show you what this means. Pay is a root word, and it basically means mouth, word, or speech, or breath. So, because it is through our mouth that we speak. And in Proverbs 18:21 it says, life and death are in the hands of the tongue. So what we say is of very importance. So let's keep that in mind also. Also, I want to show you from two sources. So at the mouth of two are three witnesses. So let's look at BibleHub.com, and it's Strong's 3068. So it tells us this is the proper name of the Elohim of Israel, and it is pronounced, it's got the full vowels, so pronunciation is right there. It says Yehovah. Alright, and that's the proper name of the Elohim of Israel. And also we have a Blue Letter Bible. We also go to Strong's 3068, and here we have the name with the full vowels, which is Yehovah. So this is the pronunciation of the name, but also the name should be used with reverence and used within the spirit of truth, but also used with knowledge and understanding. Commandment number 4. Before we read this commandment, there's some very important observations I'd like to point out. Number 1 is the only commandment that has the word to remember in it. You see, the Most High, in His infinite wisdom, we know that He wrote the end from the beginning, and He is predestined, and He knows what will become of all people, and He has put this word remember in this commandment for a very important reason. So keep that in mind for a moment. Now, number 2, it is also the commandment that contains the seal of the Most High. So we have the Most High's name, Yehovah, and it talks here about He created the heavens and the earth. So talking about His dominion and territory. He is ruler over all. And also it speaks here in this commandment about the 7th-day rest. And we know that the number 7 is to do with completion and perfection. And it also symbolizes that day of rest that we are told in Hebrews, where they did not enter that day of rest because of disbelief and disobedience. So there is a day set apart where we will enter into that promised land, but it's all based on observance and keeping of His commandments. And this is what this commandment is really about, is seeing who would remember and observe and keep it, and who would reserve the right to actually enter into the kingdom. Now also I'd like to point here, always preceding Yehovah, we have the Aleph and the Tav. And we know that the Aleph and the Tav, Yeshua said that He was the Aleph and the Tav. And we know the Aleph and the Tav is the Word, and the Word is Spirit. Everything spoken by the Most High is Spirit, and it is these words that are life. Now, keep that in mind. Now also I'd like to point number 3, I should mention, is that the Sabbath was given as a sign between Yehovah and His people. And this is spoken of in Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 12. Zakor et Yom Hasabat Lekadeso Seset Yamin Tavod Vehasite Kal Malaktaka. So basically it says, remember the day of the Sabbath, the 7th day, the Sabbath, and it says to keep it separated or consecrated. So we should treat this day differently to every other day. And we're told 6 days you shall labor and do all work. So we're given 6 days to labor and do all work, but we are meant to remember the 7th day, the Sabbath day. And it says, Veyom hasabi'i sabet le Yehovah Eloheka lo tahase kal melaka. And what we're told here, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of Yehovah, your Elohim. And it says, no, you shall not do any work in that day. So that's what the commandment says. Now, it says, Ata hubinka hubiteka abdeka, and it's basically talking about you, your son, or your daughter, or your servant, right? Or manservant, abdeka, basically word to do with work, or servant. And it says va'amateka, or it says your maidservant, hubehemteka, and this is the word to do with your livestock, your animals. So even your animals, and it goes on to say vegareka, this is for a stranger or sojourner who is traveling with you, asher bisareka, so this is who is within your dwelling, your gates, basically. Shahar is gate. So that's what it's speaking about. So basically, you or your son or your daughters or your servants or your maidservants or any animals or any sojourner with you within your gates should cease and desist from work, basically. So it's got ki seset yamin asa Yehovah et hasamayim ve'et aharetz. And it's talking here about for 6 days, med Yehovah, and we have the Aleph and the Tav, of course, the heavens and the earth. So this process took 6 days, and Yehovah was working during these 6 days, but the 7th day is set apart as a special day, and it truly is a special day. Okay, so let's continue reading. It says et hayam. So et hayam, and it talks here about the sea, and ve'et kal asher bam. So basically, it says the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, basically, and Vaya Noach. This is where the word rest comes from, which, when we think about the great flood, Noah, this is the same word, but it means rest. Okay? And, well, in this case, rested. So basically, he rested on the 7th day from all these works, after he met everything. And it's basically talking about that day. Hasabi is the 7th day, and all can, and therefore Barek, he bless Yehovah et Yom Hasabat. So he blessed the 7th day. Vayakat the Sehu means and kept separate, and separated from all the other days. So this really is a likeness commandment, but really it's all about the process of creation. It took 6 days, and the 7th day is all about this rest day, which we don't have to work anymore. So it's quite amazing. But also, this is a special day that we're to remember, because it is to do with entering into the kingdom, and we only can enter in if we keep his laws and his commandments and observe his statutes, and these are the requirements to be in the eternal kingdom. After all, the Creator does not want lawlessness like that is occurring in this world. He wants his children to keep his ways and learn wisdom and not fall away. Mitzvah, commandment number 5. Kabed et avika ve'et imeka lema'an yarekun yameka el hadama asher Yehovah Eloheka noten laka. This basically means to honor your father and your mother, to the purpose or to the intent. And this word here is it's kind of translated that, but it really means purpose or intent, or to answer or respond. So there's an intention here, and there's the responding and answering to your parents. So this is important. And this means, Arakun means to belong. Yemeka, which is your days upon the earth, right? Which Yehovah, your Elohim, gives to you, right? So there is an important structure, the father and the mother, because you see there is a earthly father and there's an earthly mother, but we also have a heavenly father and a heavenly mother. Of course, our father, the Creator, but our mother is wisdom. And we're meant to honor our heavenly father and our mother, but we also meant to honor our earthly father and mother. So this is the structure that the Creator has put into the world. And we see that today, that this very structure here, the father and the mother, is being destroyed. And when this breaks down, this structure, the world breaks down, because there's a reason that the Creator put these things into our lives, because we're meant to learn from our father and we're meant to listen to our mother. But of course, society is broken down, and we see this attack on society today, where they're tearing down the family structure, which in turn breaks down society. So there's a reason that the Creator gave us this commandment. So we are meant to honor our father and our mother, but also our heavenly father and our heavenly mother. Mitzvah, commandment number 6. Lo tirsak. And it's very concise. It says, you shall not murder or kill. And this is the commandment towards our neighbors. And this is a powerful thing, because Yeshua really magnified the law, and he said that if you hold anger towards your brother, you've already committed murder in your mind. Now, the commandments are there to protect and ensure that we live in peace amongst one another, but there is a law here at work, and we are told that whatever a man sins by, the same he is punished by. So in cases where punishment, where righteous punishment is declared by the Creator, there is times where if people are breaking the laws and doing things that deserve punishment, then the Creator holds the right to punish them by the same means in which they commit their atrocities. So if people are pillaging and looting and killing and murdering, then there is times where they will be punished by the same act. This is wisdom. But if we live by the law and we live by the principles set down here, then there is peace. But if we go against the commandments and the law, well, then there is retribution. But the principle here is, you shall not murder. You shall observe and keep the commandment. And this is what this is all about. Mitzvah 7. Lo tinaf. And basically, you shall not commit adultery. Now, this is for very obvious reasons. Not only in a parent, father and mother type of relationship, but we see that the breaking up of families causes so much grief and pain and impact on children. And there is so much impact by adultery. It has such an implication on society, on people around those people involved in it, and it causes pain and suffering to those people who are directly impacted by it. So the Creator as he doesn't want this. He wants his people to be happy, and he thinks about the impact and the pain that is caused by this. So this is what this committing adultery is about. But also there's a spiritual adultery, which is really a metaphor for spiritual beings wanting to be in the fleshly tabernacle. So we see a lot of time that the Creator compares his people onto harlots and going after other women. And this is the idea that they're kind of not happy with what they have. They always want something different or something else. Now, James 4:4 talks about, do you know that friendship with the world is hostility towards Elohim? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of Elohim. So we are spiritual beings. So our home, we're in the earthly tabernacle now, but we are spiritual beings, and we're meant to be looking forward to that kingdom. Mitzvah, Commandment 8. Lo tignov samak. Basically, no stealing, but typically they say you shall not steal. But basically it prohibits stealing regardless of circumstances, whether you're poor or you need food. And we see samak is here again, and we know samak means to uphold, to support, to lean upon, because we see that every commandment they uphold and support one another. They're all connected. And each commandment is important and very vital in itself. But this is around the act of stealing, basically acquisition of something that does not belong to you, and it belongs to somebody else. And it can happen at many different levels. It can happen in a home, it can happen in a business, or it can happen in a government. But basically the idea is taking something that is through stealing is wrong, basically. Now, it could be planned, it could be because of an opportunist or impulsive in nature, but it is wrong by the commandment. Now, also we see in the new covenant, anyone who basically follows the law, if they have been stealing, they are commanded to stop stealing and to get a job and to work. Now, we know that the Creator will honor anyone who honors his laws. So if you keep his commandments, if you turn away from your previous life and you decide to follow his laws, then he will uphold and support his law, and he will provide also. Mitzvah, Commandment 9. Lo tane bereka ed shakar samak. Basically, it says you shall not respond to your companion or your friend or bear witness using deception. Basically, it's talking about deception and lies here, and it's about bearing false testimony. Now we see, so this word here really is ana, tane, but basically the root word there is ana, which means to answer or respond. And Ria is friend or companion or associate, so basically your neighbor or anyone. It is witness, and shakar means falsehood or deception, basically lies. And what is the impact of this? Well, we see in Matthew 26, the chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin, they were looking for false evidence against Yeshua. so they could put him to death, but they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. So think about this. When witnesses are paid or they're corrupt and they don't honor this commandment, then if they're put into positions of power and they are easily bought off, then they'll easily lie to you and deceive you. And this is what this commandment is prohibiting, this kind of behavior. Now also in John 8:44, Yeshua speaking to the Jews, he said, "You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies." Now think about a society ruled by liars and deceivers. What is the impact it has on its subjects? And this is why we have these problems in the world today, where there's great distrust amongst our leaders, amongst the rulers, because the rulers lie and deceive you. And this is the result of society when these laws are not kept. So this is why the Creator put these laws here in the first place, to prevent this kind of behavior. Commandment number 10. Now before we read this commandment, Yeshua spoke a lot on this specific commandment, and he taught a lot about it. And it really deals, this commandment, with the realm of the heart and the mind, the intent of the heart. See, we're told from out of men's hearts come evil thoughts and desires. And this is what coveting, this tag mode we read in a moment, is to do with desire and take pleasure in. Now we go back, remember the Garden of Eden, the tree of knowledge between good and evil, and we know that the seed that was planted, this knowledge that was imparted, has only caused man to become corrupt and defiled. And we were told that his mind was only evil all the time. And this is what it is, it's to do with the mind. And it really focuses on the internal motivations of the heart. You see, covetousness creates thoughts, but they motivate us to and inspire us, right, to take the action that will violate the other commandments. So that's what if we have to deal with the internal thing, because this is where all the problems start, internally first, and then they manifest into the world around us. So keep this in mind. So we read here, it says, Lo takmod bayet re'eka. So you shall not covet the house of your neighbor. Lo takmod eset re'eka. And you shall not covet the wife of your neighbor. You see, these commandments are very connected, because it is through this desire, this covetousness, that we want to take our neighbors. We see our neighbor's wife and she's beautiful, and we want to take her to ourselves. Well, through this action, through this covetousness, we not only take the wife, but we also we take the home of our neighbor, because they're all connected. They're part of a family. So desiring one thing has a repercussion and effect on something else. And we also read there, ve'havdo, v'hamato, ve'soro, ve'hamoro, ve'kol, asher l're'eka. And it says, and your manservant, or your maidservant, or your ox, or your donkey, and all that is your neighbor's, right? So basically, it's basically anything that belongs to your neighbor you should not take, because by breaking any one of these things, you had this whole effect on destroying your neighbor, all because of what? A desire, something to take pleasure in. And the repercussions are catastrophic for those impacted, because we see so much pain and suffering has been caused by this covetousness. And this is what Yeshua is really speaking about. And we see even in his wisdom, he's he hasn't left out the most humblest of all creatures, the donkey. And even the donkey is considered to be of a prize. We know that donkeys were generally portrayed as stupid and stubborn, or servile at best, and generally represented the lower class people. And we see that Yeshua, he arrived on a donkey, and we are told, "Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey." So we see that it's quite amazing, the wisdom of the Most High. But you see, the Most High cares for the people, and he wants a world where people don't have to worry about your neighbor being broken into, or stealing things, or breaking up marriages because of unfaithfulness and defilement, because that's what is the result of breaking these commandments. So this here commandment is very vital and very important, and we can see why the Creator wants to deal with the motive of the heart, because from out of men's hearts come evil desires and all forms of ungodliness. When you observe the works of the Most High, they're always in two. Like I said, there were two trees in the garden, and that tree is that embedded within those two trees is our story. The end written from the beginning, because the tree of life represents the mind of Yeshua, wisdom. And we have the tree of knowledge between good and evil, which mankind, Adam and Eve, was warned not to eat from, because from the day you eat of that tree, that knowledge, those ways would destroy mankind and lead them into the paths of death. And the Creator warned us about this. Now, also take Adam and Yeshua. We're told that Adam represents the first man, and Yeshua represents the new man, the mind of wisdom. Now also we have Esau representing the old age, and Yaakov the beginning of the age to come. We have the two tablets of stone representing the first covenant and the second covenant, but also a testimony. And we have the life of Moshe and Yeshua, whereas Moshe is a similitude of the life of Yeshua. Now the Creator said that every matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. And that's why we have 2 roads. A broad road leads to destruction, and a narrow road leads to life. And that's why we were given the right way to live and the wrong way to live. We had choices. Now observe the following. You see, it all goes right back to the image, what we were created in, the image of Elohim. And we see now, at the end of this world, we have the image of the beast. And I'll describe what that really is talking about. And we're also going to have a seal of Elohim, and we're going to have the mark of the beast. Now, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, it talks about Elohim, and it says, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness." Right? So we are created in the likeness of the Elohim. And what does the likeness mean? Well, in Sirach chapter 17, verse 5, it talks about this image. And it talks about they received the use of the 5 operations of Jehovah. And Jehovah is the creator. So these 5 operations of Jehovah, which is the senses, and we're told that in the 6th place he imparted them understanding, and in the 7th speech, an interpreter of the cogitations thereof. You see, the Creator has created man with these qualities, or these aspects or attributes, or this image of Elohim. Now, counsel and a tongue and eyes and ears and a heart he gave them to understand. So understanding is what we are given. We should have understanding. And it said, withal he filled them with the knowledge of understanding, and showed them good and evil. And he set his eyes upon their hearts, their minds, that he might show them the greatness of his works. And he gave them the glory in his marvelous acts forever, that they might declare his works with understanding. See, we were to get, and that's the whole thing about wisdom. It said, in all of you getting knowledge, he said, get understanding, because understanding explains everything. Now, Also, it says that the elect shall praise his name. Now, about the mind, this mind that the Creator has given man, and he has given us the ability to think deeply, to contemplate and think deeply about matters. And that's why many things are hidden. And it says, it's the glory of Elohim to conceal a matter, but the honor of kings to search it out. So we should search matters out, because that's the part of learning, the ability to comprehend, to have intellect and reason. So that's really what the image of Elohim is all about. A very intelligent beings with great ability to grow and become very wise. And this is why he intended for man to be. Now also in 1 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 16, it also talks about, it said, who has known the mind of Jehovah so as to instruct him? But we have the mind of the Mashiach. Now what's quite amazing here is the mind of Mashiach. When you look at the meaning of the Mashiach, it means the anointed one, the one with oil. And the oil symbolizes wisdom, because it is the oil that burns their lamps continually, because wisdom is eternal. So it's really quite amazing how he has hidden so much wisdom, and it's for us to find that. Now, also, let's talk about the seal. So we're going to have what's called the seal of Elohim as well. Now in Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 to 11, it talks in here about the seal of Elohim, because this is one of the commandments, and it's to do with remember the Sabbath day. And this was to be a sign, but also it was a commandment that we should observe. And in that verse it talks about the seal of the Most High. It describes who the Creator, his name, which is Jehovah, and his territory and dominion, which is the heavens and the earth. You see, because he meant the heavens and the earth. So he has dominion and power over all things, because he is the Creator of all things. Now, also in Exodus chapter 13, verse 9, he said, it talked about when they were coming, when the Creator took them out of Egypt, he gave them a sign for your hand and a reminder on your forehead that the Torah of Jehovah is to be on your lips. So the Torah is also a sign that we are to keep. Now also in Ezekiel we see that there is when the angels were commanded to go throughout Jerusalem and to put a mark on the foreheads of those who grieve and lament over all the detestable things that are done in it. You see, because the Torah is spiritual, and it is the Torah that teaches us the ways of the Most High and what is acceptable and how we should live in this world. And those who understand the Torah look at the image of the beast, and we see detestable things that occur in the mind of the beast. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But that's basically what it's saying, is there is a process, a way, when we come to know the Most High and we follow and keep his commandments, then we'll understand what is truly right, what is good, and what is evil. And that's really what this is also talking about. I'm also talking in Ezekiel 20, verse 20, it says, and they shall keep my Sabbaths separate, that there may be a sign between me and you, and that you may know that I am Jehovah, your Elohim. And that's basically it, really. That's what it's saying. And when in Revelations, of course, it talks in Revelations chapter 7, verse 3, it says, do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the servants of Elohim on their foreheads. And we're told it is those who keep the commandments that are sealed. So that's why the commandments are vital and so important. Now I want to talk also about the image of the beast, and it's really quite amazing because it goes back into Genesis chapter 3 verse 14, and this is in the garden when Eve and Adam transgressed their commandments, and the earth was basically cursed, and also the serpent was cursed, and he was cursed above all of the livestock and animals. So it's very interesting, and he essentially become the mind of the beast. So this is where it all began. Now, also it talks in Daniel chapter 4, verses 15 to 16. It is talking about and it's really to do with Babylon, because you see that Babylon is mystery, and it has been there from the beginning. And we see that Babylon is destroyed in the end. But this Babylon is very symbolic, because we have the story of Nebuchadnezzar and the statue or the image that he was given. So we have the head of gold, the silver, the thigh of bronze, and then we have the legs of iron and clay. And it's really quite amazing, because what we see is gold is of more value than silver, and silver is of greater value than bronze, and bronze is of more greater value than iron and clay. And it's very interesting, because it shows the degradation of the kingdom, how it's going to become worse over time. And also Daniel was given the images of the beast. So that's really, he was shown that there were 4 great beasts that were going to come upon the earth. And the first was like a lion, and then there was the second, a bear, and then there was a leopard. And then there was the fourth beast, which was terrifying and frightening, and it had large iron teeth. And it's really quite amazing. Now, also here we have the symbolism of the tree that is to be cut down, and its thighs would, its feet, legs and feet would remain. And this is quite amazing here as well, because this iron and bronze would remain in the ground. And I'm talking about the iron and the clay for a moment. What do we understand about this? Well, iron and clay do not mix, so it's a very divided kingdom. And this is the kingdom of the beast, the final kingdom. And it's basically being Rome. And what we understand about Rome is that Rome was basically a senate. So they're the first form of governments where you have the left party and the right party. And it's symbolized by these 2 legs. 2 divided systems. Now, it's really quite amazing that the Most High has already foretold these things in advance. And also in Revelations 13:4, it talks about they worship the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast. And this is really the story of the dragon, because the dragon is the serpent in the garden, and is all his kingdoms, and he is ruler over all these kingdoms. But we see that it is symbolized by beasts, because a beast is an animal without reason and understanding. So that's really quite amazing. Now, also we're going to have what's called the mark of the beast, right? And this is quite amazing when you think about it, right? Because in Revelations 13:9, it talks about the number of the beast, and it says this number is 666, right? But when you think about it, it really comes down to man, because 6 is the number of man, because man was created on the 6th day, but also when he dies, he's buried 6 feet in the ground. And this number 666 really goes down to the carbon-12, which is the basic molecule, or the basic building blocks of humans, animals, plants, trees, and so on. So we have 6 protons, we have 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons, and it's quite amazing that this is where the image of the beast is going to be. So it's really down, almost talking about at our DNA level. And what do we have today? Well, we have the mark of the beast, which is actually being currently implemented in the world, which is mRNA and DNA recoding. So this is really what it's all talking about, is the reprogramming of your human DNA. And also, what is a mark? Well, a mark is really a sign of authority and ownership, but it's also put onto slaves to show that they have a master. So literally, by taking this mark, what you're doing is you're transforming what you were really created in the image of, which was the image of Elohim. And now you're actually taking on the physical attributes of a beast, because this technology and what's actually occurring here with this nanobot technology actually can literally reprogram you and actually reduce you from an intelligent being into a beast. Now, I'd really find it absolutely amazing that the Most High has foretold this in advance. So this is what we have. We have what we originally intended to be, is the image of Elohim, but we see that the system has become so corrupt over time, that is so defiled, that man has been reduced to an animal. And that's what the mind of the beast is all about. A beast without reason and understanding. And let's talk about the Great Awakening and what this is all about. And really, it is being already foretold in the book of Daniel and the book of Revelations. Because you see, there is an amazing parallelism here between what was actually foretold in the book of Daniel and what is occurring in the book of Revelations. And the Revelations is the end of this age, and it's the events that will occur before judgment. Now, I want to read for you Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. It says, "At that time, Michael, the great prince who protects your people, will arise." Now, Michael is one of the Elohim. He's one of the archangels, and he's a great prince. And the Creator has protected his people from these forces that we have spoken about previously. And it says there will be a time of great distress, a time of distress such as not happened from the beginning of the nations until then. But at that time your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered. And we're talking about the book of life here, and there's the book of the dead. Because there are two books, just like there are two words. And this book of life, our names are found written in that book. Because from the very beginning, he called their names. And he called them into the wilderness, and he gave them these Torah. Now, this is a verse I really want you to understand and comprehend what it's speaking about. It says, multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake. Now, this multitude who sleep, this is talking about spiritual death here, and it's talking about at that time of the end, multitudes will wake up. They will awaken in the earth. And this dust is symbolizing man, because we are made from the dust. The carbon is dust of the earth. Now it says that some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. Because why? Some to life and others to shame and everlasting contempt. Well, that's because those who are wise will understand what is actually occurring in this world. You see, it is the Creator who is awakening mankind up, and He's revealing what is really occurring in the earth, and seeing who is worthy and who is wise among men to realize what is occurring. And that's what is really happening at the moment. Now, it says, those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever day. So it really comes down to the wise and the foolish, because the wise will understand what is really occurring at the moment, whereas the foolish will not. Now it says, but you, Daniel, roll up and seal the words of the scroll until the time of the end. So this is the scroll that is being foretelling the end has been sealed up, and that's why it could only be understood at the time of the end. It says, many will go here and there to increase knowledge, and we can not argue today that knowledge truly has increased in our age. He replied, go your way, Daniel, because the words are rolled up and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified, made spotless, and refined, but those who are wicked will continue to be wicked. None of the wicked will understand, but those who are wise will understand. So you see, even in this awakening occurring that is happening, there is the wicked. And we're told that only the wise will understand. And what has been the purpose of this? Well, really is been to take us out of this corruption that the Creator foretold about. You see, He knew that all things will become corrupt. And He is purifying those of His people right now. And that is the journey of the wilderness. And why? To make them spotless and refined. It says that the wicked will continue to be wicked, and none of the wicked will understand, but those who are wise will understand. So that's really what is occurring at the moment, is the Great Awakening. And it's really about the end of Satan's kingdoms and awakening the world up to what's really going on before Judgment Day. Now, understanding that Daniel had already been shown the vision of the end. He had understanding because he was wise, and although he lived in Babylon, he did not worship the image of the beast. Now, what's amazing is that Daniel is a similitude of us. You see, Babylon is a mystery, and this Babylon has been running the world since those times. And the Creator has foretold the end of the beast system in advance. And it is all written in the book of Daniel, and it is concluded in the book of Revelations, which is really about the end of this age and Judgment Day, because it is about justice. Now I want you to understand that it is the Creator who's revealing in these times the truth. And that is why those who are wise will understand, and those who are foolish will not understand. So keep that in mind. And let's look at how magnificent the Most High is and His wisdom, so profound. See, in Jude 1:14 it says, Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied about them, and them is talking about the watchers, but also about the end from the beginning. And it says, see, the Lord is coming with thousands upon thousands of His holy ones. And this is really what Judgment Day is all about. There is going to be justice for all the corruption, the lies, the deception, the quantity of good men, the suppression of the truth. This is why there is going to be judgment. And it's going to be the Lord with His angels who are going to execute judgment upon the earth. So this is where our justice is going to come from. Now Enoch 1, it talks about when the angels, and the angels have shown Enoch all these things. He said, which the angels showed me, and from them I heard everything, and from them I understood as I saw, but not for this generation, but for a remote one, which is for it to come. Now concerning the elect, I said and took up my parable concerning them. And a parable is the language of wisdom. And it says, the holy great one, or the Kodesh, the great one, will come forth from his dwelling, and the eternal Elohim will tread upon the earth, even on Mount Sinai, and an appearing strength of his might from the heaven of heavens. And this is it. And it says, and all shall be smitten with fear, and the watchers shall quake, and great fear and trembling shall seize them unto the ends of the earth. So this is exactly what is going to happen. We are now out of time, and we're about to see the end of everything. And it says, and all shall be smitten with fear, and the watchers shall quake. And this is really quite amazing, is that this book of Enoch was written before Daniel. This is what's quite amazing, is that he has foretold this in advance. And it says, and behold, he cometh with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment upon all, and to destroy all the ungodly, and to convict all flesh of all the works of their ungodliness which they have ungodly committed, and of all the hard things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. And that's referring to the Creator and against his anointed one, Yeshua. Because people have spoken against the Most High, and they have not understood his judgments, they have not understood his ways, they have not kept the commandments, and they've even denied that he existed. And they've not even considered his works or the benefits he has bestowed on mankind. And they have spoken things without knowledge and understanding. They have spoken harsh words against him. And this is why all will be smitten with fear when he returns. But you see, in his great wisdom, in his great knowledge and understanding, he's already understood all these things in advance. Nothing is unknown before him. He said everything will be laid bare before the eyes of him to whom we must give account. And that's why the books were written in advance. That's why there's a book of life, and those whose names are found written in it will be delivered. And they will, and that's another quite remarkable thing about this as well. You see, the story has always been about the transgression in the garden and being expelled from paradise. But you see, the Creator, in his infinite wisdom, has given us a way to return again, and that is through repentance, but it's also through his wisdom, and given us a difficult path back, but we have to earn that right to return to the kingdom. And it's quite amazing. I can actually testify to this truth. We give glory and honor to Yehovah Elohim and to his son Yeshua, and we are to honor his wisdom.